The scale of the destruction is almost unimaginable. Towns and villages destroyed. Lives destroyed.
This is the home of the Alwani family, where 7 people, the father, the mother, and 5 sons were killed. People are saying that the number of those injured is very high, and they are mostly children. And when they are being killed and injured, in the very place they went to look for safety.
Syria. The conflict has led around 4 million people to flee their homes. More than 1.4 million more have left the country altogether and are now mainly in neighbouring countries, many in refugee camps.
The war was happening in front of us. It wasn't good anymore. So we came here, with war happening on top of our heads. We hope it'll be better for us here. The most important thing is to be safe. We don't need much more.
And they are not alone. Around the world, millions of the most vulnerable are being failed by their governments and the international community.
Syria is, of course, in the media at the moment, but it's not the only place where refugees are coming from. There are about 15 million refugees in the world. Some of them come from Somalia, they come from Afghanistan, there are Palestinian refugees and Rohingya refugees, and all of them live in very difficult circumstances and do not know when they will be able to go home.
Mali, and in fighting for control of the north of the country, hundreds have died, thousands have fled. Wherever there's conflict and people forced to flee for safety, women and girls seem to be at greatest risk. Rape and sexual violence are a real threat.
They threaten me with a gun. If you don't give them your money, they kill you. If you wouldn't give them what they want, they would also rape you.
The paradox is that it's harder for the refugees to cross borders than it is for the guns that fuel the violence and insecurity. But 2 months ago in New York, 20 years of public pressure on the world's governments finally led to the adoption of an arms trade treaty that aims to stop shipments of weapons where they may be used for human rights violations.
7/L58 is adopted.
We have a lot of hopes for the arms trade treaty. We think that it really will stop the irresponsible flow of arms to those who use it to commit atrocities. But we need to remember, people cross borders for many reasons, not just to escape violence. Sometimes they're trying to escape poverty. And what we see are migrants crossing borders, sometimes with papers, sometimes without, and once they do that, being stripped of their rights and exploited.
Plenty of countries want cheap labour, but don't seem prepared to recognise that every migrant worker has rights. A labourer is also a human being. He also has his own way of living. He's not some animal who can be imprisoned and suppressed in order to extract work. The economic exodus means that tens of millions of people are on the move from country to country. Europe is investing millions of euros in protecting its borders. The side effect is those trying to enter are often detained, discriminated against, and denied their fundamental human rights. When it comes to policing borders and dealing with migrants, there are governments claiming they have the right to act as they see fit in the interests of their people, but they forget that human rights are fundamental and non-negotiable.
The world is becoming an increasingly dangerous place for refugees, migrants, displaced people in general. So the international community, political leaders have to accept shared responsibility to protect the rights of these millions of people who are displaced and pushed out of their homes. Human rights are global. They don't stop at borders. So the leaders, international community, our political leaders, have to take responsibility, accept responsibility for the rights of the millions of people who are displaced and pushed out of their homes. Governments have been created to protect the rights of their citizens. But we then have governments who are actually doing exactly the opposite, who are actually violating the rights of their own citizens and for people who are living inside their boundaries. So I think in this day and age, the excuse of national sovereignty, that these are internal affairs, is simply not acceptable.
Civil society is what made this happen. The people who had suffered the consequences of the irresponsible flow of arms worked together. Amnesty International, IAN's Control Arms campaign, and we went to the very governments that were making huge profits and said, there is no excuse for sending arms to someone, a government, a group who's going to use them to commit atrocities.
Again, it did not explode. He suffered bad shrapnel injuries in both his legs. He's in both his arms and.
فجيت على محلي أنا حسيت صار قصف مشت الأجري انقطعوا مباشرة. طبعا أنا رجل ما لي علاقة في كل الأمور، عمري 65 سنة يعني.
Toka songo.
Ndio wanakutana mnyumba leta kitu kama mafuta takuwa kama nakutana vitu viko mnyumba wanaweka leo na kubaka na kubaka wanamke wanabana bana.
She has just fled with one.
Jo vile tunaenda kutana na huku munjia huku ngambo huku sasa. Kule walikuwa na watu na mipanga na mavisu na masasi iko na piga bamoya. Tuko navuka tu viko lumiza watu, basi ni damu ya Mungu tu kuponesha watu. Tuko atembea tu vile sama nyama kusudi tupone. Hapa tuweko huko watoto wengine. Make ni kukamata tu mwenye unakamata unakimbia naye basi. Tunafahamiana kule tunaonanaka sasa vile masoko tukwenda mamushamba. Tunafahamiana vile.
Bueno. Depuis matin, on est là. Les ONUC aussi sont là. La police onusienne est là. Par notre grande surprise, on a vu des FSI, des dozos qui ont entouré le site partout. On ne sait pas, un coup, on entend des bruits, des fusils. Ils tirent sur les gens. On fuit, on rentre chez les onusiennes. Eux aussi disent qu'on n'a qu'à sortir. Eux aussi sont sortis.
Ah bon, Vende, ça va. Ça là, c'est ma vie qui a un peu plongé. C'est la manière on m'a chassé de mon village, je suis venu me réfugier ici.
Quand nous sommes sortis du camp, arrivés au corridor, j'avais le fils de mon oncle qui avait son diplôme à l'intérieur des choses du camp dans sa bâche. Il a dit, je retourne prendre mon diplôme, mon BPC qui est resté dans la bâche. Et quand il est retourné, il n'est plus sorti, ils l'ont tué, ils l'ont abattu.
Vous étiez tous en Aïbli, là, tous là?
Oui, tout ce monde-là, ils sont en Aïbli.
دانا بيري شديد جري 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 غابة 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 شو هنا قاعدين توقتين كده توقتين العيال الصغير ده تجروا مويه ما في مويه ما في واكل ما في
Woi, anu tunangnya bujuna. Wallahi kita kontak dengan katul kita ni anak. Tulu baja. Bis. Tunda berfatar sedang berkulit.
The other one landed here. This one did not kill anybody, but
Klinik.
اسم عبدالسلام است. ما رئیس شورای مهاجرین باریکا هستم. شهرک استاد خیلی مربوط به اصولی قره‌باغ هستن. در اینجا دارای 400 فامیل زندگی میکنیم. و این شهر نوبنیادی است. واقعیت مردم بسیار فقیر مسکین در اینجا جاگزین شدن که دولت برایشان یک نمره زمین داد. اول تا فعلا دولت توقع خاص مردم از دولت دارن، ولی دولت کدام تدابیر خاصی نگرفته که سرنوشت از اینا را تضمین بکنه و تعیین بکنه که روی مشکلشان کار شده باشه.
生打我们。我们有好心的人去报案以后，110那个民警到场以后，我们就没办法，叫着民警的腰带，来到派出所。可是到了派出所以后，我们的人真是有要求政府给我们一条生路，给我们一条活路，早日还我们的家园。
Non c'ho nessuna speranza, non c'ho nessun futuro. Se cercano integrazione bisogna integrare persone con italiani, con il lavoro, con le case, non buttare in mezzo alla montagna dove i bambini crescono male.